Good morning, folks. I'm meteorologist Corey Thompson here in the TV9 newsroom. I'm going to give you a sort of advanced and longer update about the upcoming winter storm across the area. It's been a very busy week for us in the TV9 Weather Lab and for you at home as well, I'm sure. Lots of snow to clear and just a lot of tricky travel over the last handful of days. And more to come, unfortunately. Now let's take a look at what happened last night first, just really quickly. We did see a decent amount of snowfall in some locations, between about an inch in Loudon and Hazleton, just over those reports there. Same in West Union, Belle Plaine about 2, with the same reading from the Dubuque Airport. And then areas near Cedar Rapids, closer to 2 to maybe even 3 or just over 3 inches in those areas. So yeah, we did see a decent amount of snowfall across a good portion of eastern Iowa. That led to road conditions this morning being somewhat poor. They still are in northeast Iowa. So that's kind of our baseline as we're heading into these winter weather events coming up over the next couple of days, including that major winter storm that we've been talking about in the very near future. Right now it's quiet though across most of the Midwest. The snow we saw last night is now pushing off to the east through the Great Lakes states. There's some very light snow in the Dakotas, but we're actually waiting for more snow to develop and an area of low pressure to develop and strengthen coming off the Rocky Mountain states. This area down here toward the Rockies where we've seen a little bit of precipitation. That's a first sign of the storm system coming our way. It's going to come off the Rockies and then round the corner and move off to the northeast. So that's what we're waiting for over the next little while. A winter storm warning is in effect. You perhaps have heard that if you have the KCRG TV9 First Alert Weather app. Probably got that notification this morning. It will be in effect until early Saturday across most of eastern Iowa. It gives us a really good chance at seeing, well, very heavy snow, as well as some pretty strong winds that will cause significant blowing and drifting of snow. In fact, it's probably going to be even a bit more significant than the last time that we saw the snow move through the area. Our winter storm earlier this week did have a good amount of blowing snow, but due to the wetter nature of the snow, it was a little tougher to pick up. This time, though, could be a little bit different. Pinpoint Futurecast is where we'll take a look at the timing of the arrival of this precipitation as we go through the day. We're actually seeing some patches of clearing so far this morning, and we'll actually see a few of those sticking around as we go through the day, too. However, later this afternoon and evening, that's when things will continue to change and become a little bit more treacherous as we head toward tonight. Notice between about 9 and midnight in our southern zone. That's when we're going to start to see some of that snow move through. And it continues to track off to the northeast from there. See that it arrives and approaches the Highway 30 corridor between about 2 and 3, and then continues its northward trek, be approaching the Highway 20 corridor between about 4 and 5, and spreading to the north from there, and continuing through the morning commute. So if you have work, if you're going to school, although I would expect some schools may take the opportunity to change their schedules again on Friday after a week where there have been disruptions just about every day. They will be affected by that snow starting off in the morning. Now notice as we head toward the latter portion of the morning into the afternoon, we actually start to see a little bit of rain try to move into far southeast Iowa. This is an area that could see some mixed precipitation develop during that time. And there's a possibility that could make it a little bit farther north than what Pinpoint Futurecast is depicting right here. If that happens, that would cut into the snowfall totals. There's also the outside chance that there could be some narrow areas of a little bit of freezing rain during this stretch. However, all that's going to serve to do is just put a cap on the snow that's already fallen. It's not going to be enough really to cause like significant damage, which you can see in an ice storm, but it would cause tricky travel during that time as it falls. So watch out for that. If you see things change to liquid, but your temperatures at or below freezing, that's where we could see some of that ice start to accumulate. Areas farther north and west, though, staying all snow, as temperatures should be cold enough for that to take place. In fact, as we head toward the afternoon, colder air will begin to work into eastern Iowa. Notice that some darker blues start to show up too. We could see moderate to heavy snow at times again during the afternoon hours. Would set up a very tricky evening commute as well. Just generally a pretty bad time in terms of travel during that stretch. Even by Friday evening, 7 o'clock, you still see a decent amount of snow across the area and becoming a bit more scattered but still present as we head into Friday night. So that possibility remains as we head into the nighttime hours. Even a few scattered snow showers possible early on Saturday, but then we turn mostly dry. A flurry or a snow shower is still possible on Saturday afternoon, but in terms of accumulation, we'll be done with the bulk of it at that point. So it's really the tonight into Friday night period where we'll be adding snow to what we already have. Our forecast calls for 4 to 8 inches of snow across the entire TV9 viewing area. It will be heavy at times. It will also feature a lot of widespread blowing and drifting. Expecting travel to be quite hazardous. Remember, we saw pretty hazardous travel earlier this week already with a lot of crashes on Interstate 80 in particular. The system's going to be overall relatively similar in terms of its overall evolution. Generally lighter snowfall amounts though, but in this case, because the snow will be a little bit fluffier in nature, it's more likely to be picked up by those strong winds. And those winds will probably be at least as strong as what we experienced with the storm system earlier this week, if not just a little bit stronger. This area of low pressure that's going to be causing this snowstorm will actually probably wind up a little bit stronger than the last one. We are just going to be seeing the winds as a result. The moisture levels with the system are not quite as high. And so that's part of the reason why we're not seeing the same foot plus potential across the area, but still very significant snow, and what falls could blow and drift quite a bit. I had a few questions about blizzard warnings. Why is a winter storm warning not necessarily a blizzard warning? Well, there are certain criteria that need to be met in terms of the National Weather Service issuing a blizzard warning. It needs sustained wind gusts or frequent gusts above 35 miles per hour. Which it looks like we will meet for a good period of time Friday into Friday night. And it's the visibility requirement, a quarter mile or less for 3 or more hours. Now, the National Weather Service has described the conditions as blizzard-like during this time, and I think that's correct. I think we will see some whiteout conditions at times, and they may go ahead and issue a blizzard warning tomorrow. Does it really matter in the end in terms of overall impacts? No, not really. But the possibility is there as we look ahead at that time. So that's the criteria there. And in the end, again, as noted, it doesn't really make a difference in terms of what we're going to see. Now, our overall recommendation during this time, Friday into early Saturday, is really just avoid travel if you can. Now, of course, we acknowledge that that doesn't apply to everyone. Some people still have to go to work. There are necessary jobs. There are jobs where you aren't able to get off work. Sometimes you just don't have the time off that you can take. And you got to go to work to make some money. I understand fully. If you must go to work, we urge you to certainly give yourself plenty of extra time to get there. Slow down. That's going to be your best friend there, is slower speeds. And just generally try to keep us on the roads there in best condition as possible. Major streets instead of side streets. Perhaps alter your route just a little bit and give plenty of distance between you and the car in front of you. Those are key elements. Now, if you have to travel in rural areas, we strongly suggest that you pack a winter survival kit. Various elements to it, including making sure your gas tank is full. You may not be able to get the gas that you need in some cases, and just takes a little more gas to get around the snow. You're revving that engine a little bit more to get through some of those slippery spots sometimes. Keep the jumper cables or a battery pack around. Your phone charger too. In fact, charge your devices. Keep them a little bit more topped up than you might otherwise on a normal day, just in case. I don't think we're going to see widespread power outages with the system. But you never know. With winds that strong, it's always possible that a branch could land and knock out power for a period of time. First aid kit in your car, always a good idea, certainly during this time. But then blankets, flashlights, some water, and some areas of or some groups of small and non-perishable snacks to have just in case you're stranded for a while. It's possible. Keep a shovel in your trunk, perhaps, and an ice scraper around, of course, as well. You definitely will need that, and a brush. Emergency flares or lights if you have them, so that folks can find you. Then salt, sand, or cat litter, any sort of grit and texture to add to the snow if you get trapped. That could give your wheels enough traction to move out of an area of snow, and that would be really, really helpful. So those are all the things we recommend. If you are stranded in your car, don't try to venture out, especially when the visibility is very low. You can get disoriented, and that can lead to some pretty bad outcomes. You can quickly find yourself in an area that's way too cold, way too windy, and you can't see where you're going. That makes you a danger in terms of being something that another driver may encounter, or just getting lost. That has happened in the past, where people unfortunately have passed away due to that sort of situation. If you are stuck in your car, make sure your tailpipe's cleared to prevent any sort of backflow of carbon monoxide into the cabin. Generally, we're looking for snowfall reports too. If you want to participate and give us the information that you have from your neighborhood, people always want to know how much snow fell. And we can't really tell you unless you tell us. We need to have some picture of what's going on around eastern Iowa. And we can measure around the station and around our individual homes, but that doesn't cover all of eastern Iowa. So get a ruler. We've got the First Alert snow stick pictured there on that picture. But take a ruler or a tape measure and take several measurements around your yard. Avoid the big drifts. I mean, you can tell which part is obviously drifted and the shallower parts where the snow has blown away from. And just take an average of these measurements, email it. weather@kcrg.com. We'll take your report. You can also message us on our Facebook page, and we'll be very, very happy to have it. Now, looking ahead after this storm system, much colder air will be arriving into the weekend, especially Sunday into Monday. There may be a little bit of warm up the middle of next week, but the cold air doesn't really go anywhere anytime soon. In fact, we have an extended period of very cold temperatures. We're talking below normal by a matter of 30 degrees, perhaps 20 to 30 degrees below normal in terms of a high, which is quite cold indeed. In fact, wind chills by Sunday and Monday morning running 20 to 40 below zero as our air temperatures fall well below zero during that time too. Now, with that type of air temperature, it does not take a lot for those wind chills to get into the dangerous category. With 20 to 40 below zero lows, or wind chills, you're talking about the possibility of frostbite in a matter of minutes, as well as the possibility of hypothermia if you find yourself stuck outside in that exposure to that type of temperature is really dangerous. So you need to cover up any exposed skin, wear layers of loose-fitting clothing so it helps trap that heat closer to your body, and also just try to avoid it if you can. That's the best bet here, is to just kind of stay inside, perhaps plan on a prolonged weekend of potentially staying inside. I know it's the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday weekend, and so for some folks they have Monday off already, and that would be helpful to avoid that. So let's recap real quick. Winter storm warning in effect for the entirety of the TV9 viewing area, starting later this evening and tonight, and then it lasts until Saturday morning for much of the area. That's as snow is moving in. It's heavy snowfall and widespread blowing snow that we're most concerned about with this system. Clouds will stick with us, and then we'll eventually see the potential for snow as we head toward the night. Some patchy clearing is possible early today, but then cloudier skies later on. Notice that snow moving in from the south about 9 to midnight in our southern zone, spreading to the north from there. The morning commute on Friday will be affected. If you are a third shift worker, expect snowy conditions by the time you head home for sure by tomorrow morning. And then we'll see the snow stick around for most of the day. Again, some mixed precipitation is possible in the southern portion of the viewing area as we head toward late in the morning on Friday, early afternoon, as some warm air gets wrapped up in this system. That could eat into snow totals down that direction. But for the most part, we're just going to see snow, and it will be moderate to heavy at times. Visibility reduced for most of the day as winds increase during the afternoon. Snow eventually ends by Friday night. 4 to 8 inches of snow across the area with widespread blowing and drifting, probably a bigger deal than the last system that we had that produced heavy snow earlier this week in terms of that blizzard-like condition possibility. And that's as wind gusts increase to the 40 to 45 mile per hour range during the afternoon. That's quite windy indeed. That's why we're concerned about this storm system and encouraging you to act safely, avoid travel whenever possible during this time. We'll have additional updates on KCRG.com, of course, on KCRG TV9, Everyday Iowa, coming up at 9 o'clock on Thursday morning, midday, and our evening and nighttime shows as well. Meteorologist Joe Winters will be providing another live update on YouTube and KCRG.com coming up this evening as well, just after the 6 o'clock newscast. So we'll keep you informed as this storm approaches eastern Iowa. For now, though, I'm meteorologist Corey Thompson. Thanks for joining us this morning, and as the storm moves in, please stay safe.